Okay, I've told you that I think this is the most important video of them all, so here we go. This video is all about building the capacity to show unconditional respect for all students at all times. Does that sound crazy to you? Or does that sound commonsensical to you? Many teachers might find it difficult to stay cool in the face of negative student behavior, especially when students are treating them poorly in front of an entire class. How do you maintain your own dignity and the dignity of students? When you stay cool in the face of negative student behavior, you can expect to watch your students grow. So, like I said, this is something that some people might have a really hard time getting their heads around, but I'm not asking you to let down your boundaries or let things go. So be careful not to confuse this concept with what some call being soft. Staying cool and being respectful of students' dignity still requires teachers to set and hold boundaries. Let's take a look at what this complicated balance looks like. One way to maintain respect for student dignity while dealing with difficult situations is to use reflective listening. So this means listening to students in a way I'm going to tell you about, even when you feel like they're being disrespectful. And obviously, there's a line that students can cross where it's no longer okay and you need to come back. But know that if students are being very disrespectful and you're trying to listen to them and work with them, it's often a good idea to wait until they're de-escalated and come back to the conversation later. When talking to students, especially about things they're in trouble for, listen to their side of the story and don't interrupt. Let them complete their thought, then rephrase what they're saying back to them. This serves to, one, show them that you're actually listening, and two, give them a chance to clarify their thinking and get their point across accurately. For literacy development, this practice will actually help students with the tasks of listening and speaking. When you model effective listening skills and help students clarify what they're trying to say, students may in turn improve their own listening and speaking abilities. Now, if this is something you really want students to learn, be explicit with what you're doing. Explain to them how not interrupting is a great way to listen to the complete thoughts of the other person, and how rephrasing helps you both make sure you understand what the message is. Students can sense when you experience emotional reactions. So this slide is all about controlling your nonverbal communication. You often signal your internal workings by posture, tone of voice, body language, and where you sit or stand. It's important to regain control when you lose it. Take a deep breath or use touch points of focus on your body to bring yourself back to baseline. Do you know what touch points are? If not, Google the word touch points and the word meditation and learn more about these powerful tools. If students cause the emotional reaction, this can make them experience a sense of embarrassment or vulnerability, seek to protect their pride and not lose the fight, and therefore act out and engage further. To preserve both you and your students' pride, realize how your nonverbal communication can be escalating them. Disengage before you get into a power struggle. Let them win if you have to. Then come back later to process the incident. Power struggles caused by ruffled feathers and a mutual reluctance to back down can be very embarrassing to students, especially if they end up in office referrals or detention. You have more control over these interactions than you think. How you handle confrontations or prevent them will determine how they impact your relationship. For literacy development, avoiding power struggles means that you keep students from derailing and missing the academic part of your class. When we're agitated, our IQs actually go down because our brains are in the fight, flight, or freeze response. This is true for both students and teachers. Our mental faculties are focusing on survival, and the parts of our brain responsible for the higher levels of functioning like the types required for literacy tasks, may be inaccessible. If you can prevent students from getting escalated by controlling your own responses, you can keep them in the headspace for learning. If not, then don't try to reason with them then and there. Don't try to get students to engage even though they're escalated. Remember to wait and process the incident later so that both of you can learn from it. Students won't learn anything from you talking to them and trying to reason when they're frustrated, agitated, or otherwise escalated. The last tip I'll give is that teachers need to respect students' dignity even when they're not respecting yours. And I'm going to show you how, because that's really hard sometimes. When a student is acting out, seeking negative attention, or doing anything that is disruptive or cause for corrective action from the teacher, the more publicly the teacher engages, the more the student will escalate. The best way to approach this type of behavior is privately and, if possible, non-verbally. Try to prevent the need to cue students verbally by working before incidents occur to decide with the student on a nonverbal signal that cues them to check their behavior. Also, try to find the root of such behavior. If students struggle with stacked directions or complex learning tasks, it is your responsibility to mitigate these factors. Don't jump to conclusions, point fingers, and make a public spectacle of a student. Instead, consider what is causing the behavior and work with the student to develop solutions. Such collaboration lets students know you believe they are capable of being successful, makes you partners in their social, emotional, behavioral, and eventually academic success, and deepens the relationship with a personal bond. Just like the avoidance of power struggles, avoiding public confrontations with students keeps their brain functioning. Using private redirects allows you to prevent students from getting escalated. Use the cue, then give the student space. Space can be physical, it can be in the form of silence, and it can also be in the form of time. By skirting the confrontation, you give students the opportunity to relax and engage in literacy tasks on their own terms. Give students control and they will take it. Once more, you don't have to give up your own dignity and cave to students. You should always remember to come back and process with students, probably after class or in private some other way. Here's a quote that helps frame our options in the face of conflictual versus positive relationships with students. We have a choice. Truth is, I'll never know all there is to know about you, just as you will never know all there is to know about me. Humans are, by nature, too complicated to be fully understood. So, we can choose either to approach our fellow human beings with suspicion, or approach them with an open mind, a dash of optimism, and a great deal of candor. Be open-minded, optimistic, and honest with yourself and your students. You won't regret it. In this final video, I explained ways to reduce the negative impact of problem behaviors in support of relationship and literacy development. Take some time now to round out your learning by completing the challenge. Thanks and best of luck with your relationships. I can't wait to hear what you will do with your learning.